Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we're exploring a literal microscopic labyrinth, the ones silently powering, well, pretty much our entire digital lives, printed circuit boards. We interact with them literally every single day, but pulling back the curtain on how they actually work at that microscopic level, it's absolutely fascinating. Okay, I was completely blown away when I learned this number. 110. The smartphone sitting next to you right now, or maybe the one you're holding, contains over 110 meters of wiring inside of it. I mean, think about that. That is longer than a football field. All packed in there to flawlessly combine your camera, speaker, display, Wi-Fi, battery, and dozens of microchips into one seamless device. But if you were to actually crack your phone open, you're obviously not going to see a giant spool of tangled wire. So where on earth is it all hiding? Well, that brings us to Section 1, the maze in your pocket. Just take a look at the internals of this 1948 Motorola TV. Before printed circuit boards or PCBs became the standard, electronics relied on point-to-point construction. And as you can see, it was a chaotic mess. I mean, it was time-consuming, highly prone to human error, and just an absolute nightmare to try and repair. Now, contrast that rat's nest with a modern smartphone. PCBs replaced all that chaos with an incredibly compact, space-efficient design. Because all the components are securely soldered directly onto the board, they become highly durable and reliable, even when they're taking physical stress. Plus, once a design is totally locked in, it becomes insanely cost-effective for mass production. It was a complete game changer. Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of a Circuit Board. So, at the absolute core of this labyrinth is a material called FR4. It's essentially woven fiberglass bonded with an epoxy resin binder, and it acts as a completely non-conductive insulator. You can kind of think of it as the literal foundation of a skyscraper. It's what gives the board its rigid mechanical strength, its sturdy core support, and, absolutely most crucially, it prevents the flow of electricity from going where it shouldn't. It perfectly isolates all those microscopic conductive wires from one another. To put this into perspective, a typical smartphone PCB stacks 10 conductive copper layers with that insulating FR4 sandwiched in between. The top and bottom layers physically mount the components, your microchips and resistors, and they also act as multiple antennae. Inside, you've got dedicated power planes to deliver electricity across the board, while ground planes act as electromagnetic shields and help dissipate heat. Actually, that heat dissipation is exactly why your phone doesn't just melt in your hand when you're playing a heavy game. That leaves 4 middle layers dedicated entirely to carrying the intricate communication traces. Imagine having 10 distinct floors in a complex office building, and the whole shebang is packed into a board that weighs less than a tablespoon of water. Insane, right? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these different floors actually talk to one another. Since we have all that insulating FR4 blocking the electricity between the 10 layers, engineers use something called vias, which stands for vertical interconnect access. Basically, these are tiny, precisely drilled, metal-plated holes that act like microscopic elevators for electricity. You've got through vias that go all the way from the very top surface straight down to the bottom. Then you have blind vias, which connect an outer layer to a middle layer, kind of just stopping halfway through. And finally, buried vias. These are completely hidden deep inside the board, linking internal layers together without ever touching the outside air. It is a masterclass in three-dimensional routing, fitting all those connections into a space less than 1 millimeter thick. Let's pivot to Section 3, Types of Circuit Boards. When it comes down to it, flexibility and layer counts totally dictate a board's real-world application. For instance, rigid single-layer boards use that sturdy FR4 material we talked about, but they only have copper on one side. They're super cheap, really easy to manufacture, and absolutely perfect for simple, low-density things like calculators or LED lighting. On the flip side, rigid multi-layer boards give you that high density you need for heavy-duty computer motherboards and high-speed circuits. But what if the board literally needs to bend? Well, engineers swap out the FR4 for a base material called polyimide to create flex PCBs. These things are ultra-thin and adaptable to super complex geometries. They're exactly what you'll find wrapped around your wrist in a fitness tracker or hidden inside the hinges of a folding smartphone display. And then finally, you have rigid flex boards. These combine both materials on a single layout, giving you robust structural mounts right alongside flexible ribbons. It's a critical, high-end technology for aerospace, foldable devices, and even tiny medical implants. All right, shifting gears to the factory floor. Section 4, the manufacturing process. The imaging and etching process is essentially this massive, fascinating exercise in chemical photography. We start with our FR4 board, completely laminated in a solid, continuous sheet of copper. First up, we apply a thin layer of photoresist.
which is a light-sensitive polymer, right over the copper, and then place a stencil-like photo mask over that. Next, we hit it with an intense blast of UV light. That UV light travels straight through the transparent parts of the mask and physically hardens the photoresist underneath it. After washing away all the soft, unexposed polymer, the whole board is dunked into an alkaline etching solution. This chemical bath is aggressive. It eats away all the exposed copper. But the copper hiding safely beneath our hardened photoresist, that stays perfectly protected. Once we strip away that remaining polymer, what's left behind? Our incredibly intricate, perfect copper tracks.
But remember that smartphone we talked about earlier has 10 layers. So to build a multi-layer board, engineers rely on a material called a prepreg. This is essentially a fiberglass cloth that's been pre-impregnated with a partially cured resin. This prepreg is placed carefully between all the different copper layers. Then the entire assembled stack goes into a vacuum heat press machine under extreme temperature and intense pressure. That resin melts and acts like a hyper-powerful adhesive, literally baking all those distinct inner layers into one solid, unified piece of engineering. Once the board is finally unified, the vias, those tiny microscopic elevator holes, are drilled. But drilling straight through fiberglass and epoxy leaves a bunch of debris. And more importantly, the inside of that newly drilled hole isn't actually conductive yet. So first, a chemical process called desmearing cleans out all the melted resin smear. Then comes the real magic, electroless copper plating. Without needing any external electrical current at all, this amazing chemical reaction deposits an incredibly thin uniform copper seed layer right onto the non-conductive inner walls of those drilled holes. It successfully bridges the gap, allowing electricity to seamlessly travel up and down the labyrinth. To finish up the factory process, the board basically gets its armor and its map. First goes the solder mask. That is the iconic green polymer coating you see on almost all electronics, applied to the surface to protect against oxidation and prevent accidental solder bridges. Next up, the exposed copper pads get a Hassel finish, which stands for hot air solder leveling. It coats them in tin so the components will solder on smoothly and, crucially, won't rust over time. Finally, we have silk screening. This prints that white epoxy map overlay directly onto the board to outline exactly where components should go, note their specific orientations, and add any manufacturer logos for the final assembly. It's the finishing touch. And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Inventing the Next Generation. When you really take a step back, the continuous innovation here is nothing short of awe-inspiring. I mean, just 50 years ago, computers took up entire air-conditioned rooms and were tangled in these massive, heavy cables. Today, thanks to decades of brilliant, just relentless engineering, we have smartphones with 110 meters of wiring compressed into a multi-layered board that weighs barely a tablespoon. Engineers have pushed the boundaries of miniaturization so far that some of the components, like tiny resistors and capacitors mounted to these boards, are literally smaller than a single flea. It's hard to even wrap your head around. But none of this happened by accident, right? It's the direct result of relentless materials science and absolute genius manufacturing techniques. As the quote here suggests, the baton is constantly being passed to the next wave of innovators. Whether you are aiming to be the engineer actually designing these complex architectures, or you're just someone who loves closely following the absolute bleeding edge of tech, this drive to multiply computing power while continually shrinking its physical footprint, it's undoubtedly one of the most defining technical pursuits of our lifetime. Which leaves us with this final, remarkable thought to chew on. We've gone from chaotic point-to-point TV wires to 10-layer, flexible, microscopic mazes in just a few short decades. So with wires microscopic enough to fit 110 meters seamlessly into your pocket today, what breakthrough technology will you invent next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope you walk away looking at the digital devices around you with a whole new level of appreciation.